Okay, welcome to everyone who just joined the session. I hope it's a beautiful Sunday for every one of us. So welcome to another session on strategic financial management. Our plan today is twofold. The first topic would be decision tree. And that's one that we would ensure that we finish within the time we have. However, if we're done with that and we still have some time left out of our 2 hours scheduled for today, we would move on to the next topic, which is business valuation. And the focus with regards to business valuation would be the merger, when a company demerges part of its entity. So let's get right into decision tree. And so let's get right into it. So decision trees is one of those topics that it's important that students get to know for the SFM exams, because decisions are often linked with a number of uncertainty and a number of options. And as strategic financial managers, we should be able to evaluate those various options that are available to us to make the decision that is most beneficial to our organization. So when it comes to decision tree as a topic, there are 3 things you should know when it comes to the topic for the purpose of your exams. And the 3 things you should know are: 1, with the symbols that would use to annotate or draw our decision tree. 2, the direction we will adopt in drawing our decision tree, as well as the direction we adopt in evaluating the tree. So let's begin with the first part, which is the symbols that we would use to draw a decision tree. The topic, guys, is decision tree. Okay, so you're required to know 2 symbols and to use 2 symbols as required for your decision tree. The first is the square symbol, and these are decision points. So whenever you see a decision point or you make use of a decision point, it basically means that at that particular point in time, you need to choose between alternatives. You need to choose between alternatives. So you could have 2 options, you could have 3 options, you could have 5 options. So that's the decision point. So it's just like a company trying to decide between, maybe they're trying to make an investment decision and they're trying to choose between, should we, for example, invest in bonds, fixed security, government security, or should we invest in shares or stocks? At that point, a choice needs to be made. And because the choice needs to be made, the appropriate symbol to use would be a decision point. And so what are we saying in summary? Whenever you see a decision point or you make use of a decision point, a choice had to be made at that point in time. A decision has to be made at that point in time between alternatives. So you could have 2 options, you could have 3 options, you could have 4 options, but a decision or a choice had to be made between those alternatives. So that means that you only use the square symbol whenever in the part of the question a decision has to be made at that point in time. Now, when you make a decision, you expect some form of outcome. And that outcome is designated with a circle symbol. It is your outcome point. Or sometimes called the expected value point. Okay. Now, because the future is uncertain, you could have more than one possible expected outcome. And each of these possible or expected outcome would have some level of probability attached to it. So the expected outcome, which is what we've talked about the concept of expected value before now, would basically be, you're not making any decision about calculating or computing the expected value. So the expected value would basically be the individual values or the individual outcome. Let's use the word outcome. Values is defined, the values or the individual values or its outcome. It's like expected outcome multiplied by probability. And then whatever the values are, we sum it up. Take, for example, using our illustration much earlier, the company is trying to decide between the available fund we have. Do we invest in, say, fixed income, or do we invest in stock? So that's a decision point. Now, if they choose to invest it in, say, the stock market, the expected outcome cannot be 100% certain to be this value. So there might be more than one expected outcome. It could be that, okay, if we invest in stock, best case scenario, we make $1 million. Worst case scenario, maybe we lose 100,000. Average, maybe we are around 500,000. So those are all the possible expected outcome. And each of those expected outcome would have the probability of that outcome happening. So the expected value would just be those individual outcome multiplied by the probability, and then we sum it up to arrive at the expected value. Now that's the second thing you should know. And those two summarizes the symbols that you would use to draw your decision tree. Now let's now look at the direction of our decision tree, in terms of how we draw and how we evaluate. So I'll just call that direction. Now, whenever you're drawing or plotting a decision tree, whatever term you prefer to use to describe that, we would typically draw our decision tree from left to right. What do we mean? So we're going to start from the left, and we are going to be drawing it towards the right. That's what we do. Okay, I think I should put it on the same line as what I just wrote now, rather than having it on a different line. So we draw it from left, and then we move to our right. So we're drawing it from left to right. That is the standard approach for drawing of decision tree. We draw from left to right. However, when it comes to evaluating the tree, okay? So when it comes to evaluating the tree, we adopt a different approach. We would evaluate the tree from right to left. We would evaluate the tree from right to left. We draw it from left to right. We evaluate it from right to left. So guys, these are the 3 key things you should know when it comes to decision tree. 4 rather already. The decision point, the expected outcome, how we draw the tree, and then how we evaluate the tree at the end of the day. Okay. With that said, let's get right into a practice question on decision tree. Okay, so let's get right into it. Or is there any question, you guys? Is there any question on the 3 items you should know on decision tree? Maybe I should start with that. Okay, let's get right to our question. And I think if there are any questions at that point, we would take it. All right, so let's get right back to our question. So this is May 2025, question 2. Okay, so the question reads, an oil company has recently acquired rights in a certain area to conduct surveys and test drilling for oil where it is found in commercially exploitable quantities. The area is already considered to have good potential for finding oil in commercial quantities. At the outset, the company has a choice to further conduct geological tests. So that's a choice. So that means that we should have a decision point used to illustrate that. But let's read the question through to understand the question, and then we'll come back again and read it to answer the question. So I'm going to begin from that second paragraph. The area is already considered to have a good potential for finding oil in commercial quantities. At the outset, the company has the choice to choose further geological tests or to carry out a drilling program immediately. On the known conditions, the company estimates that there is a 70 to 30 chance of further tests showing a success. So if you do carry out the test, there's 70 to 30% chance of a success. Whether the test shows the probability of ultimate success or not, or even if no tests are undertaken at all, the company could still pursue its drilling program or effectively consider selling its rights in the area. Thereafter, however, if it carries out the drilling program, the likelihood of final success or failure is considered dependent on the following. So those are outcomes. Those are outcomes, not choices he has to make. If successful tests have been carried out, the expectation of success in drilling is given as 80 to 20. If the test indicates failure, then the expectation of success in drilling is given as 20-80. If no tests have been carried out at all, the expectation of success in drilling is given as 55-45. Cost and revenue have been estimated for all possible outcomes, and the net value of each is given below. So you have the outcome. So the outcome that you would have is successful drill without any test, with prior test rather, is 100. Without any test is 120. The outcome that you would have a failure with test is -50. Without any prior test, it is -40. If we sell our exploitation right, prior test shows, and the prior test shows success, we'll sell it at 65. If the prior test shows failure, we'll sell it at 15. And if we're selling an exploitation right without any form of prior test, we sell it at 45. You're required to draw a decision or probability tree diagram to represent the above information. That's our A part. B, evaluate the tree in order to advise the management of the company on its best course of action. C, discuss the value of decision tree, providing management with guidance, with guidance for decision making. Give examples of any situations where you consider their use would be beneficial. 3 marks. So therein is our question. So let's now get right into our first point was to read the question and understand the question. So let's even try to understand the question first, and then we'll get right into solving it. So here is the question. The company has a right, has acquired a right to explore, drill oil. And it's looking at two things initially, really. It's taking out the choice to either conduct geological tests, geological tests on that land where it has that right. That's one up, or the company can decide to carry out drilling program immediately without carrying out any form of geological test. Now, if it does that, it tells us what can happen. There's a chance of success, there's a chance of failure. It also tells us here that it also tells us in this paragraph right here that without the test, it tells us out here that with or without the test, the company could also consider an alternative option of selling its rights. Consider an alternative option of selling its rights to drill in the area. So let me pause, guys. From what we've just read right now, what are the 3 decisions the company, or 3 choices the company is trying to make at this point in time? What's help us out? So it has the land. It has the land that it has acquired right to drill on. So we read the question. What options can you see? What choices the company faced with at this point in time? Let's see if we can hear some people's voices. So what do you think? What are your thoughts around that? What choices can you identify from what we've just read? With that land and in front of the company, what are the 3 choices the company is trying, or 2 or 5, whatever you can identify, the company is trying to evaluate? Who wants to give it a try to us? Adetunji, please go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. With you. Are you there? Okay, looks like we've lost Adetunji. Let's listen to Laura.
Look, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, I think the first choice is to whether to conduct a further geological test.
Okay.
And the second one is to carry out a drilling program. And the third one is to carry out a drilling program. Yes, immediately.
Without the test. Without the test, right?
Yeah, without the test, yes. And the third one is to consider selling its right to drill in the area.
Thank you very much. So those are the choices the company has to make. So that means that whenever you draw in a decision tree, you need to first ask yourself, what are the decisions at the very start the company is trying to make? Now, because we're looking at decisions between those alternatives, we said we have 2 symbols we're going to use for a decision tree. We have to use the rectangular shape because we are faced with decision. We're faced with different decisions. So let's make use of a decision tree and then draw out the different decisions that the company has to make at that point in time. So we can have this as our decision because the company has to make a decision. And Adetunji identify them clearly, 3 decisions. The first decision the company has to make is for that land that they have to make a decision to carry out that test. That's the first choice they have to make. The second choice the company has to make is to say, we will not carry out any test, we will just drill immediately. So that's the second choice, no test, drill immediately. And the third choice is to say, we have the right already. We're not doing anything. Let us just sell the right. So now that we've identified the decisions that the company is faced with, we now look at, okay, what are the expected outcomes from this decision, or what are the further decisions the company has to make based on these different lines? Now that we've identified the initial decision for the company. So we need to look at, if the company carried out tests, what's the outcome, or what further decision does it have to make? If it doesn't carry out any tests, but decides to drill immediately, what choices or what option does it have to make? And if it doesn't do any of those two and decide to sell the rights, what is the expected outcome? So let's now go right back to our question and look out for statements that are related to carry out the test, no drill, no test, drill immediately, or sell the rights. Now let's go right back to our question and okay, it's done. Our question is done. So let's get right down to our question and do that. All right, so let's read the question. This time we're going to read it a little bit slowly. So I'm starting from the second paragraph so that we can pick the points. The area is already considered, that's the second paragraph right here. The area is already considered to have good potential for finding oil in commercial quantities. At the outset, the company has the choice, that's a decision, we've already mapped that, to conduct further geological tests or to carry out drilling program immediately on the known conditions. So what we mean by that is, if the company carries out the test and knows the condition of that land. So on the known conditions. So I'm trying to, where's my pen? I'm trying to underline that line. Okay, so I'm right here. So on the known condition. So you can only know the condition of that land when you carry out the test. Without the test, you can't know the conditions. So when they carry out the test, the company estimates that there is a 70 to 30% chance of the test showing a success. Now pay attention to this. Now it says 70 to 30. Now what this basically means and is that 70% is the item or the outcome that is being mentioned here, which is the first value. The 70% is success. The balance is the opposite of that. The balance or the other values to the right represents the opposite of that. Except the person specifically tells you, what 30 represents. Otherwise, the 30 will represent the opposite of that. So what is the opposite of success? What is the opposite of success?
Failure.
Failure.
Failure. Thank
Failure.
you. It's failure. It's failure. So what that means is that on the known condition, in other words, when it drills the test, we expect it to either be successful or for it to be what? A failure. And there is a 70% chance that it will be a success, and there is a 30% chance that it will be a failure. So because those are expected outcome from a decision, we're going to make use of the outcome symbol. So let's make use of that. So you carry out the test, you expect two outcomes. The outcome would be that our test shows that we are successful, shows that our test indicates that it's successful, and the probability of that happening is 70%, which is 0.7. There's also the probability that our test would be a failure, I want to draw that line so that I don't get too clouded. So I'm going to push this one a little bit down. Push this one a little bit down. It's also the probability that our test would be a failure. And what is the probability of that happening? 30%. Any question on that line? We're moving further to read the next line. Decision tree, we read it one line at a time so that we get the flow. Okay, so the next paragraph, which is this line, we've read that line and we've mapped that line. So moving on to the next paragraph, which is this paragraph. So let's get right into that paragraph. Whether the test shows the probability of ultimate success or not, or even if no tests are undertaken at all, the company could still pursue its drilling program. The company could still pursue its drilling program or carry out, sorry, where did I read it? The company could, where am I reading? Where that's what? Okay. Sorry, what am I reading? Let me read that again. Whether the test shows the probability of ultimate success or not, or even if no tests are undertaken at all, the company could still pursue its drilling program or consider, or alternatively consider selling its right to drilling in the area. Now let's pause. Can you clearly see a choice there the company has to make? See, pause and look at it again. There's a choice there. It says that whether or not test is successful or not successful, or even if the tests are not undertaken at all, even if it's not undertaken at all, the company can decide to say, we want to pursue the drilling program, or we want to what? Or we want to do what? Or we want to do what? Or they consider what?
Selling the right.
Selling
the
Selling
right.
its right.
So that's the choice. That's the choice the company has to make. So because it's a choice, which symbol do we use? Do we use the zero symbol, circle symbol, or do we use the square decision point? Who wants to remind us of that? Because it's a choice.
Use the cycle. The square. Because it's a decision.
We use the square symbol. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. So you guys, you're getting the concept. So because it's a square, so because it's a choice, we need to make use of the choice or this rectangular decision. So let's plot that for that part of the graph. We're going to do the other part. I plotted it up. We're going to plot the other parts of the decisions later on. So let's plot the upper one first, and then we'll come back and look at the other ones. Okay. So for every part, so if it shows success, okay. So let's get right to plotting. So we need to put our decision point also. If the test shows success, which is this, we have two choices. We can either, if it shows success, or whatever it is, we can decide to either go ahead with it. We can decide to go ahead, or we can decide to do what? We can decide to do what? Sell the rights. If it shows failure, whether or not it shows success or failure, we have two options. If it shows failure, we also have two options. We can decide to say, okay, even though it shows failure, we will go ahead. Or we can decide to say, we're not going ahead, we are selling the rights. So regardless of whether our test shows success or failure, we can decide to say we are still going ahead even though it's showing failure or we're selling right. If it shows success, we can decide to say we're still going ahead even though it's showing failure, or we can sell right. Any question on that mapping? Okay, so let's get back to our question. Just read it line by line and then you map it. That's the only way you don't, and that's the only way we don't, what do you call it? That's the only way you don't miss out the point. Okay, now let's look at the sentence again. It says, whether the test shows the probability of ultimate success or not, or even if no tests are undertaken at all, the company could still pursue its drilling program or alternatively consider selling its right to drill in that area. However, if it carries out the drilling program, the likelihood of final success or failure is considered dependent on the following. So if it carries out, and pay attention to what it says here, if it carries out the drilling program, the result of the likelihood of final success or failure is considered to be dependent on the following. Now let's go ahead with that. If successful test, so if it carries out the drilling program and you have a successful test, the expectation of final success is in drilling is given as 80-20. So 80 will be success, 20 will be failure like we discussed. But where does it come into? Now let's read it one more time. If it carries out the drilling program, so it carries out drilling. So if it carries out drilling and the test shows success, the test and the test showed success. We expect the final outcome to be 80-20 for success failure. So let's go back to our chart, our graph up to this one, and look at what line do we have where it carried out drilling. The test showed success. And then we can then map in the decision point. So let's look at where it carried out drilling. The test showed success, and we can then map out the decision point. So let's go back. Let's go to our chart quickly. Where does it carry out drilling, and the test shows success? There is no test here, so it cannot be on this line. There is no test here, so it cannot be on this line. So it has to be on this line. So it carried out the test, failure. The comment says that where the test is successful, so where it shows success. That's what it says. This is where it is a successful test. So it is only a successful test on this line. So test shows success. So we found ourselves at this point. It says where it carries out the project. Here it doesn't carry out. Here it sells the right. Even the test shows success, it sells the right. So it cannot be this line because it sells the right. Rather, the only line where it is going ahead with the test when it shows success, when the test shows success, is on this line. Is on this line. And if it's on that line, we expect two outcomes. We expect the final project to be successful with the possibility of 80%. But we expect it to be a failure with a probability of 20%. So what are we saying in essence? Just follow through where that outcome is expected. So let's do it one more time, just in case you missed it. It says, however, if it carries out the drilling program, so if it goes ahead, the likelihood of final success or failure is considered dependent on the following. If successful test, so you need to look at where do we carry out the program, and on that same line, the test is successful. That's what we've just done. And then based on that, we're given an expected outcome of success as 80-20. So where do we carry out the drilling and where the test successful? So that's what I'll do that one more time, just in case you missed that. We did not carry out the test on these two lines. So this one, the test shows failure. So we're not going this line. Here the test shows successful. And it says if we carry out the drilling. Here we're not carrying out the drilling, we're selling the right. So we're only going ahead with the drilling at this point. So it is only at this line where we are going ahead and the test shows success. So if that is the case, the probability of is 80% and failure 20%. Any question on that? Okay, so let's read the next line then. Decision tree, we take it one line or one sentence at a time. Otherwise, we're going to miss it out, because for each sentence, we're going to map it. Is it a decision? Is it an outcome? And then we'll go map it out. Now, if the test indicate failure, so we're looking at that we conducted a test, and the test indicates what? Failure. Then the probability of success is 20 and the probability of failure is 80. So what line would that be? Where we conducted a test and it shows failure. And we're carrying out, don't forget here it says, however, if the drilling program, if it is carried out. So if it is carried out, not if we sell the right. So what line where we carried out the test, it showed failure, but we still carried out the drilling. Let's go back. It cannot be this and it cannot be this, because we didn't carry out any test here. Here we sold the right directly. So it has to be this line. So we carried out the test showed failure. It cannot be here because the test showed success. So the test showed failure here. It's that before the statement, it says if we carry out the test. So that does not indicate where we sell our right. So the test shows failure. The test shows failure, but we still carry out our test. So we expect two outcomes, success as well as failure. So what are the probability of final success? We expect two outcomes as well here. So we can have our final success with a probability of 20%. And we can have final failure. So this should also have final, because those are the words they use. So this should have final. And we can have final failure with a probability of 80%. Okay, so let me rewrite that so that it will be a little bit more legible. So here we would have final failure with 80%. Okay, so let's get right back to our question. We've mapped that. Oh, sorry, question is down. The last point, we're carrying out the drilling, because it says how thereafter, however, if it carries out the drilling, so we're carrying out the drilling. If no tests have been carried out at all, if no tests have been carried out at all, the expectation of success in drilling is given as 55-45. So which line that where we don't carry out tests at all? From the very start. We carry out tests here, so it cannot be this line. Here we're selling our rights, so it cannot be this line. Here, no test, but we're drilling. So if no test at all, we have two possible outcomes there. We can either be successful or we can fail. So what is the probability that we will be successful and what is the probability that we would fail? So let's look at it again. I can identify that values. What's the probability that will be successful and what's the probability that we will fail? Okay, the probability that will be successful is 55%. The probability that would fail is 45%. The probability that would successful. What's my pen? Okay, so it's 55%. Probability that would fail is 45%. Okay. Okay, so right back to our question. Okay, so scrolling right back to our question. Okay, so it now says the cost and revenue have been estimated for all possible outcome and the net value of each is given below. So before we go to the cost and revenue side, can you look at the map and please let me know if you have any question on the map itself before we bring in the cost and revenue part. Any question? We're good. Okay, so I guess we're all good then. All right, so let's then go to the cost and revenue side of things then. So we also need to pay attention as well to the values so that we place the values at the right spot. Adetunji, your hand is up. You can go ahead if you have a question.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, thank you. I guess I lost you some months ago with my network. I don't mind if you can just take this me again. Maybe from this, like this second part. This if the test indicates failure, then the expected success is failure. If you cannot take from there, I think I'll be fine. I think I get that first one.
Okay, so let me do that one more time quickly so that we can make progress for everyone. So this is where the line is. It says, thereafter, however, if it carries out the drilling program. So all of this would be under a situation where it carries out the drilling program. So just like we completed for this one, if it carries out the drilling program, the test indicates failure, meaning that it has to carry out the test for it to even show whether it's successful or not. So if the test indicates failure and it carries out the drilling program despite the test indicating failure, then the expectation of success is given as 82080. We mentioned that the first item would be what you have clearly stated would be success. The second value will be the opposite of that, which would be failure. So what you need to do is to find out which of the line where the test shows failure and it carried out drilling despite the test showing failure, and then you plot in the expected values, and that's what we have here. We cannot have this line because there's no test on this line. We cannot have this line because there's no test on this line. So this is the line where you have a test. The test shows success up, so it can be up. The test shows failure down, so it has to be this test shows failure down. So it comes to this point. we're selling the right, so we're not going ahead, so it cannot be here. So the only point where we're going ahead with the drilling, where the test shows failure, is this line. So we're going ahead despite the test showing failure. So is this line. So what are the outcomes? It could be successful, 20%. It can be a failure, 80%. So that's that for that line. And then the next one says, if we're still going ahead with the drilling, but no tests have been carried out. No test has been carried out. So back to our line. This line, we're carrying out a test, so it's not that line. This last line, we're just telling the right, so it's not that line. So it is this line where we're not carrying out the test, but we're still going ahead to drill. So what is the expected outcome? You can have success or you can have failure. Chance of success, 55%. Chance of failure, 45%. Hope that's clear. Okay. So let's now go ahead
Thank you so much,
now.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So let's go ahead now at this point to look at the NPV values that were given in the question. Then we plot it in, and then we can then evaluate our chart. Now let's go ahead. Success with prior test. The NPV is 100. So where do we have test? And then our final value is success. The NPV is 100. So let's go back. So this is, we carried out the test. The final outcome is success. Our NPV is given to us as 100. So meaning that we're successful, we carried out the test, our NPV is 100. Next line is, we are successful, but we did not carry out any test. We did not carry out any test. Our NPV is 120. So let's go back. Where did we not carry out any test and we are successful? Oh, sorry, so we did not carry out any test, but we are successful. We carried out a test on this line, so it cannot be on this line. We did not carry out any test on this other line. Our outcome is successful. Our NPV is 120. We just write it by the side of it. Our NPV is 120. Back to our question quickly. So we are done with success. So let's move on to failure. We have a final value of failure. We carried out a test. We carried out a test, so with prior test. So where do we have a final value as failure and we carried out a test? Our NPV is minus 50. We carried out a test. It cannot be on this line because we didn't carry out any test. Here we're just saying that right. So we carried out a test and our final value is failure. So we carried out a test and our final value is failure. So final value is failure here. So this is minus 50. So we can put our 50 in bracket. Or you just put the minus sign. The next one, failure, we did not carry out any test. We did not carry out any test. So where our NPV is minus 40. So where do we have where we didn't carry out any test and our NPV and we had a failure? No test, we had a failure. So no test, we have a failure. Our NPV here is minus 40. Okay, and then finally, the sale of the exploitation rights. So the sales of our right. So if we sell the right where our prior test show success. So in other words, we carried out a test, it shows success, and we still went ahead to sell the right, our NPV is 65. So where do we have where we carried out the test? Our test shows success, and we still went ahead to sell the right. So let's go that prior test. So we carried out the test. Cannot be the last two because we didn't carry out any test in these two. So we carried out the test. It shows success, and we still went ahead to sell the right. Our NPV, if we do that, our NPV is 65. We sold our right. We carried out a prior test. So there's a prior test. Our result showed failure. We still went ahead to sell our right. The NPV is 15. So let's see where we carried out a test. It showed failure, but we still went ahead to sell. Cannot be the last two because the last two we didn't carry out a test. So we carried out the test. The result showed failure. We still went ahead to sell. 15. And thirdly, we didn't carry out any test at all, but we went ahead to sell the right, 45. So here, we carried out the test, so it's not here. Here, we didn't carry the test, but we drilled. And then finally, from the very start, we didn't even carry out any test. We just sold immediately. So our NPV is 45. Okay, so we've plotted in all of the values. Now, to help us or allow us to evaluate this properly, we need to assign annotation or symbol to each of those boxes. We're going to do that from left to right. So do by that. So you can say this is 1, so that you can solve for 1. You can say maybe this is 2, maybe this is 3, then maybe this is 4, this is 5, or you can use letters. You can say, okay, maybe this point is A, this point is B, this point is C, this point is whatever you are comfortable with. There is no hard and fast rule to that. Either you use number or you use letters, and the reason is so that we can know or we can solve for each of those various points. That's the reason why we're having that, so that we can solve for each of those various points. So we can use letters if we wanted to. So we can say this is point A, so that we can solve for those different points. We can say this is point B, since it's the same line. We can say this is C. We can say this is D. We can refer to this as E. You can refer to this as F. You can refer to this as G. Is there any other one? Yeah, I think those are all the points. Those are all the points. Okay, guys, so that's our decision tree, and that's our 10 marks. The 10 marks or less than 10 marks? Okay, so that's our decision tree, and that's our 10 marks. So we have drawn the tree. Next, let's evaluate the tree in order to advise management. So we need to evaluate the tree in order to advise management on which of the options is best for it to undertake. So let's evaluate our tree. We said here that we draw from left to right, and that's what we've done. When we're drawing, we move from our left and we're drawing it to the right this way. But now that we're evaluating the tree, we need to move from right to left. And don't forget how we evaluate the tree. Whenever you have a decision point, you have to make a decision. You have to choose. Whenever you have an outcome point, or you need to calculate the expected value. And what is the expected value? The individual values multiplied by the probability, and then we sum it up. So let's begin with that. So let's start with F. We're going to go in from right to left. So let's start with G. I think it's G before F, E, F, G. Okay, let's start with G so that we're moving G to down that way. Okay, so let's look at G. G is a circle, which is an outcome point. So we need to calculate the expected value for G. So how do we calculate the expected value? If we put, sorry, just a little moment. If we put, we don't have probability for if it is failure, and we go ahead, or we miss putting that. Let's go back to our question and see whether we missed having that in. Where the test shows failure, and we decide to go ahead. Don't we have NPV for those? Let's go back to our question quickly. Maybe we missed that. Where the test shows failure and we still go ahead. Do we have an NPV for that? Okay, so let's look at it. Okay, if it's successful with prior test, okay, it doesn't show. Okay, I think we missed this now. Now, if it's successful with prior tests, it doesn't mention whether or not the test shows failure, but our final test is successful. So what do we mean by that? If it is successful, our final is successful with a test. It doesn't show whether the result, it doesn't say whether the result of the test is successful or the result of the test is failure. But our final result is success. Our final result is success, and we carried out a test, it's 100. So the same 100 you have here is the same 100 we should have here. And it also says that if it's a failure, regardless of whether the test had showed success or failure, but as long as we carried out a test and it's failure, it is 50. So I think we missed that. We missed that point. All right. So that's the point we missed out there. That's the point we missed out there. Okay, so let's get back to our stuff. So if we carried out a test, and the success is 100. So regardless of, it doesn't tell us what the result of the test is. So that is not material. As long as we carried out the test and the success is 100. And as long as we didn't carry out the test and the failure, it's 120. So we missed out that point. So let's now get back to our evaluation then. So begin with point G. So point G. And point G is outcome. So we calculate the expected value. The expected value would be the individual values multiplied by the probability, and then we sum it up. So this is point G. From point G, we have 100 and we have 50. So 100, the probability of success is 20%. Plus minus 50, so that is negative. The probability of success is 80%. So what do we have as the expected value? 20% of 100 is 20. Okay, 20% of 100, 20% of 100 is 20. This is plus minus, making it minus. So what is 80% of 50? Sorry, I need my calculator. Working for a little of the, I need my calculator. So 50 times 0.8 gives us, sorry, I need to quickly get my calculator. Okay, gives us 40. So 20 minus 40 gives us minus 20. So the value at point G here is minus 20. Let's go to our F. So we are looking from right to left. Our F is also an outcome point. So because it's an outcome point, all we need to do is to multiply the individual values by the probability, and then we sum it up. So what are the points? 100, 80%, minus 50, 20%. So let's do that quickly. 100 80% plus minus 50, 20%. Okay, so what do we have? 80% of 100 is 80, minus 20% of 50 is 10. So this is plus minus, giving us minus, and that gives us 70. So at this point, F, our value is 70. So at G, our value is minus 20. At F, our value is 70. So A, B, C, D, E, okay, G, E, F, G. Okay, so our next point would be our E.
E.
Yeah, our E. Our E. Now, this is E. So let's look at our E. Our E is what? Is it an outcome point or a decision point?
Outcome.
No.
Point.
E.
Decision
E.
point.
E is a decision point because it's a rectangle. So that is the reason why you have to make use of your right symbol. It's a decision point because it's a rectangle. And whenever we have a decision point, what do we do? What do we do whenever we have a decision point? We do what? We make a choice, or we choose between. We choose between the alternative. So we are an E now. What alternative do we have? We have a choice to go this way or to go this way. Those are the two lines that are going out of E. If we go this way, we land at G, and G is minus 20. If we go this way, we land at 15. There's no probability on this line. We land at 15. So between minus 20 and 15, what's the best? What's the best for us?
15.
15. Yeah. So our E right here is 15. So I've done E. So the letter before E is D. So let's go to D. D is what? Outcome or decision?
Decision.
Decision point. So we have to make a choice. So it's either we go this way or we go this way. If we go this way, we land at F, we'll make 70. If we go this way, there's no probability, so we land at 65. So 70, 65, what's the better choice, decision of choice for us?
70.
70. Thank you. So we have a 70 here. Okay, so I'm not too good with the alphabet. Before D is what again? Before D, C, D. Okay,
C.
Okay, so C is outcome or decision point?
Outcome.
So we need to calculate the expected value. And how do we calculate the expected value? Multiply the individual value by the probability and sum it up. So let's do our C quickly. So maybe I can just write the G, F, and then E is a decision point. So let me just quickly write down the point for all the other ones. So GE is a decision point. 15 is higher. So we can say 15M is higher. I'm just trying to do A, B, C, D, E. Sorry. D is also a decision point. So we need to choose. 70 is higher. Okay, so that brings us down to C, which is an outcome. So very important to use the right symbol. Otherwise, you're going to get it wrong with the evaluation. So let's do that. So it is the individual values multiplied by the probability, and then we sum it up. So 120 is 55%. Minus 40. So that changes our plus to minus. So that's a minus 40 is 45%. Okay. So 120 multiplied by 0.55 gives us 66. The plus minus takes it to minus. 40 multiplied by 0.45 gives us 18. So what do we have? 66 minus 18. We have 48. Okay, so our C is 48. So our C right here is 48. So before C is B. You see, that's the reason why we had to label it so that it's easy to follow along. So before C is B. So what is our B? A decision point or an outcome point?
Outcome.
Outcome. So we need to find the expected value. 70%. 70% takes us to D, which is 70. 30% takes us to E, which is 15. So B is an outcome point. So 70 is 70%. Plus 15 is 30%. Okay, so there's no minus here. So it's plus. So 70 times 0.7 is 49 plus 15 times multiplied by 0.3 is 4.5. Okay, so what do we have? $53.5 million. So these values are all, let's double check that the values are all in millions so that we can attach the right, what do you call it? The right values to it. Our answers all in million. Let's quickly check that. Okay, they're all in million and they're all in naira. So let's quickly attach our currency to it quickly. So these are all in naira and all in millions. So this is naira million and this is naira million. Okay, so we've done B. That leads us to the final point, which is our final decision, which is A. So before I take a final decision, maybe I'll see if there are any questions on our computation up to these points, because our final decision will decide what we do. So I can do that here. So final decision, which is point A. Okay. Let me see if there are any questions on any of our computation up to this point before we go ahead with our final decision. Just a moment. Okay, let me begin with Gertrude. Udo, please go ahead.
So please, I don't understand how we got the 70 and the 15. I thought the 15 and 70 is actually for decision D and E. So
okay. So look at it. B is what?
That's for B outcome.
Yeah. So B is an outcome point. Is an outcome point. Now what is outcome? What we do whenever we have an outcome, we compute the expected value, and the expected value is the individual value multiplied by the probability. So if we are on B, we can have our test success is success, and that will take us to D. So if you take what is the value at D, what is the value? What will be the result if we go B? If it's successful and it lands out as D, what will be the value? 70, and the probability of that is 70%. Just like if it's F, it's successful, it lands out at 100. So if it's B, if it's success, it lands us, it will either land us at D, which is 70, or it will land us at E, which is 15. And the probability that it will land us at D, which is 70%, the probability that it will land us at E is 30%. So that's why you're having 70-15 here.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Lola, please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
So my question is, I was actually following you when you were plugging, but when you now reverse to say that with PROW test, it's not only going to be applicable on F, also it will be applicable on G success. That's when I get confused. And also the without PROW test failure of 50, will also be applicable on G failure and F failure. That's my question, sir.
Okay, let's read that one more time, because I had to read it twice. So let's read it one more time. Okay, so this is up. Sorry, is the question up or down? Okay, it's down. Let's read that paragraph one more time again. It says, cost and revenue have been estimated for all possible outcomes, and the net present value of each is given below. Success. So if our value is success, our final value is success with prior test. Now, it doesn't tell us whether it's prior test with the result of success or prior test with the result of failure. It basically says that if it is successful and you have carried out a prior test, it is 100. So where do we have success? Where you have carried out a prior test. Let's go back to our chart. So where we have carried out a prior test, not the result of the test itself, but our final result. We've carried out a prior test. It can be successful here, and it can be successful here, regardless of whether the result here is, whether the result of the test is success or failure. Our final result can be successful here, it can be successful here when we carry out a prior test. And so that is why you have 100 here and 100 here. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. Because so the reason is because it skipped this in that it only says when you carry out a test and the final result, the result is successful. So when you carry out a test, the result can be successful here, it can be successful here. Yes, Iberi, go ahead.
So, sir, did we do the same thing to that of the failure? Because
yes,
failure
please.
was
Yes,
the
please.
same.
Yes, please. Yes, please. So if we carry out a test, this line, it can be failure here, it can be failure here. So that's why you have 50 here, 50 here.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. And let's go back to our final point, which is point A, and that is where we advise management. So our point A, is that a decision point or an outcome point? Okay, sorry, we've not. So what? It's a decision point. So let's write what our B is first. Our B 53.5. So we didn't write that. Let's write it down. So 53.5 is our B. 53.5. Okay, so our A is a decision point, meaning that we need to choose, we need to make a decision. And there are 3 lines coming out of that. The first decision is that we carry out a test. If we carry out a test, it will land us at B. And what is the value for B? 53.5.
53.5.
So 53.5 million. So that's our first choice. We've not chosen yet. We'll choose. We're just writing all the choice, all the options we have, and then we choose. Because we need to make it, we need to choose or make a decision. The second decision is if we don't go this line, we go this line. If we don't test and we drill, what's our value? It lands us here. What's our value? 48 million.
48.
So just a minute, what's my pen? Okay. So no test, drill immediately. And then finally, the last line there, we sell our right from the word go. What's the value? Sorry, we sell the right, what's the value?
45.
45. So there's no test, we're selling immediately. We're not doing any test. So let me just put no test so that it distinguishes from the other part where we have sell rights. So no test, sell the rights immediately. So what's your advice to management? So which choice are you going to make? We're going to choose. So what's your advice to management / what choice would you make? So what do we do?
Carry out the test.
Carry out the test. So the option carry out the test provides the highest benefit to the organization. All right. Okay. So if you want to practice decision point, which is an important topic, like I said, please refer to, maybe I could just put it as an assignment question. So you can refer to these as an assignment question for you guys. So refer to SFM pilot set 1, question 2. So SFM pilot set 1, question 2. Now, the solution is actually on the channel, but I don't want you to look at the solution first. You need to attempt it first so that you can put your knowledge into practice first. So don't be tempted to go and watch the video immediately. Please don't do that. You won't be doing yourself any good. Attempt the question first, and then you can then compare your solution with the solution. And if there's any correction from it, you can see where you need to make correction. Okay? So you can always find the answer on the YouTube channel. It's a solution on the channel. So that's an assignment question to solidify your knowledge on that. All right. So that's decision tree. Let's take 5 minutes break and then we'll come back to get right into our next topic, which is business valuation demerger. And that will be question 1 of May 2025. So it's currently 28